Hi everyone, this is Jumbo Commander and we're looking at my tappedout.net deck list for Atraxa and the Commander 2016 budget upgrades I have for this deck. And the reason why we're on tappedout.net is so we can see the whole deck list. I mean, look at this. You might notice that there's more than 100 cards here. And the reason why is because I want to get a good look at everything. The deck as it was, and also how I've chosen to upgrade it. So you might notice these little A's right here. Okay, these A's are supposed to be for altered cards. They're to show off when you have a cool altered card. But in this case, they're additions to the deck. So they are additions that I have added to the deck. So we can immediately look at this and say that Abzan Falconer was in the deck. Altered Ego was an addition. Champion of Landhold in the deck. Chasm Skulker, addition. Over here in the sideboard, you can see my cuts. I took all of these cards out. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It means I needed room, and you can definitely keep some of them in. I'll talk about one or two of them over there. And down here in the maybe board, those are just a few ideas. So now that we've sort of grown accustomed to what's going on in front of us, let's take a look at Atraxa. We've seen her once before. You love to play with her. She is the 4/4 Flying Vigilance Death Touch lifelink that proliferates like crazy. So the strategy we're going to go for is using that proliferate, abusing +1/+1 counters. Now, it's how we abuse those +1/+1 counters that's critical. So I feel like there's two ways to do that. Number one is to build one big massive creature that people have to deal with, or put out a lot of creatures and just keep proliferating over and over again. In both cases, these are threats that our opponents have to answer. Unfortunately, that means that we're very vulnerable to things like board wipes. If we're going to be a primarily creature-based strategy, we have to have an answer for when people wipe the board. And so I've added a few of those. Specifically, Chasm Skulker. Chasm Skulker, when he dies, he puts out a bunch of squids. So wiping the board doesn't solve all of your problems. And he can also get really big on his own. Going down here, also Hangerback Walker puts out a bunch of Thopters when he dies. Hooded Hydra puts out a bunch of snakes when he dies. So all of these have are recursive threats. We're also going to want to have really strong threats on their own. So I added Avenger of Zendikar. Avenger of Zendikar can put out a ton of plants. You make a landfall, and then you can proliferate that +1/+1 counter. These plants can get insanely large. Cards that can win the game on their own are very powerful, and Avenger of Zendikar is that. I also wanted to mention, with this sort of go wide, go big strategy, the two Devour cards we have, Bloodspore Thrynax and Mycolith. Mycolith can put a ton of Saprolings onto the battlefield, and the Thrynax can put crazy amounts of +1/+1 counters on things. And these can devour up creatures that we've already gotten a use out of. So these ideas of going big and going wide can be really strong and give us ways to win the game. And that's what we're looking for, ways to win the game. But that might not be the most critical component to the upgrades. I would say that would be card draw and mana ramp. So let's look at the card draw I have added. Armorcraft Judge is a clear inclusion. You just draw a bunch of cards for all those +1/+1 counters. Okay. Going down the list, we have Etched Oracle, who can, who can draw 3 cards when you remove 4 counters. So with the proliferates, you can just keep on drawing. Okay. And then also a really strong one going down the list right here, we have Prime Speaker Zagana. You can just draw a ton of cards off of her as well. And there are a few other cards in this deck, not in the creature category, that are going to draw cards, but we'll leave those for a little bit later. I want to finish up the creature category by talking about Azuri Claw of Progress. He can just put a ton of counters on creatures, and also a lot of the creatures that we have are power 2 or less. You know, this Etched Oracle is a 0/0, this Elite Skill Guard is a 2/3. You know, this Fathom Mage is a 1/1, so Azuri can get pretty big pretty fast. Okay. Also going down the list, Fertilid. We need a lot of mana ramp to have competitive strategies. And Fertilid is a no-brainer because it uses +1/+1 counters. You can also donate a land to someone else, which is pretty cool. Also, I mentioned these big threats. Okay, so we might want to protect them, including protecting our commander with something like Plaxcaster Frogling. I can give Shroud just by paying 2 mana, but your creature has to have a +1/+1 counter on it. It's also nice that it has Graft 3, giving a +1/+1 counter on something that might need it, so you can proliferate. And then also, Viral Drake can just win the game on his own. He's my only infect creature in the deck. You, of course, could add more infect creatures, but I've decided to just go with 1 because Viral Drake has the amazing ability of proliferating. So later on in the game, you can drop Viral Drake and then just go like proliferate, and just have a massive surge in +1/+1 counters across your team. Because that's what we need. We need a lot of power on the battlefield, and then ways to get through, like the Falconer that's already in here, or the Tuskguard Captain that's already in this deck. So I think they did a great job putting the creatures together. I just wanted to fill out things a little bit more. By the way, I mentioned the Fertilid being mana ramp. I can't forget about Gyre Sage. This can produce a ton of mana. Green for each +1/+1 counter on it. You can just keep proliferating and producing more and more green. It reminds me of cards like Astral Cornucopia, where you can proliferate the counters on it and get more and more mana. Or the actual edition that I have, Everflowing Chalice. You can proliferate the charge counter and then tap for more and more colorless mana. Let's go ahead and finish up the artifacts by talking about Contagion Clasp and Contagion Engine. This can give us some great removal, but also is proliferate on a stick. Being able to tap and proliferate, or Contagion Engine, proliferate, then proliferate again, can be very strong. I also like the idea of putting -1/-1 counters on our opponent's creatures. That lets us selectively kill our opponent's creatures, which I find very nice, because we don't just have to proliferate ourselves, we can proliferate our opponent's creatures too. This matches up with a sorcery over to the left, Black Sun Zenith. Being able to put a bunch of -1/-1 counters on creatures can be very, very strong. And I found that board wipes, although we do not want them, being able to just distribute a few -1/-1 counters that we can get rid of, but our opponents can't, is very strong. There's one more very strong board wipe that I specifically left until right now, and it is an amazing card. It's Ixodron. Now, I mentioned a board wipe, and this is true. 3 blue, Ixodron enters the battlefield, turn all other non-token creatures face down. They're 2/2 creatures. Okay, you might think, oh, this is not that good, you know? But your counters stay. Your counters stay, so everything that had a bunch of counters on it, they just get turned upside down. Yeah, they lose their abilities, but they can still be huge. And all your opponent's creatures are just negated. Ixodron can win games that you have no business winning, turning Eldrazi that are indestructible just into 2/2s, turning Avacyn or crazy creatures just into 2/2s, and you keep a lot of your advantage. Trust me, Ixodron is wonderful. It needs to be in your deck, and it's 32 cents. Oh my god, straight in your deck. Okay, back down to sorceries. I was talking about Black Sun Zenith, and the selective board wiping with Proliferate can be really strong. I also wanted to finish up the artifacts. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but you can follow me, with Darksteel Reactor. This is a win condition just on an artifact. I thought it was cool, so throw it in. If you don't want to win this way, it's also $4. It's one of the more expensive inclusions. It's fine to get rid of it, but I like the idea of having inevitability on a card. It's like, yep, I got this artifact, deal with it. I thought that was really cool. Going over to a few more sorceries, we have a very, very flexible sorcery, and that's actually the theme of all of the instants and sorceries that I added to this deck. Crazy flexibility. Destroy a creature with power 4 or greater, destroy an enchantment, put +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So it's like this crazy good anthem for you because you can keep proliferating those creatures. Maybe you have a Hardened Scales, so you're putting 2 +1/+1 counters on things. Maybe you're gonna Deep Glow Skate it later. I mean, there's tons of synergy for +1/+1 counters. But the ability to reach out and kill a creature that's big, they're all gonna be big, or destroy an enchantment is very good. And again, we continue that flexibility with Verdant Confluence. We can choose 3 things, and we can choose things more than once. +1/+1 counters, again, very strong. Return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. We have a lot of permanents, and some of the permanents, like this Avenger of Zendikar up here, can be really, really important. How about this Deep Close Gate? How about Gave? Like, these are very powerful permanents that you might need to win the game. How about this Rayhan, Last of the Abzan? I mean, all of these can be really great. So getting it back to your hand, this recursion, this sort of card advantage, can be very valuable. It can also search up a bunch of basics. I guess it's considered ramp at 6 mana. But the flexibility, I think, is really important. Again, this is easily cuttable, but I wanted to make a point of pointing out very flexible cards to you. Also, Abzan Charm. Exile a creature, draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or put 2 +1/+1 counters. This is exactly what we want. We love this card, this charm. I also want to point out that Inspiring Call is very strong in this. It's card draw and it's also protection. Very good. The enchantments, I didn't make any changes. I talked about Hardened Scales, it's great. And then these 2 cards are pretty strong. I like them a lot. Over in the mana base, this is where you can have the most room for improvement. And it might be the weakness of the deck. You could probably easily add a lot more ramp. You know, you probably should add a Chromatic Lantern. I didn't add one. You can probably add a Solemn Simulacrum. Again, I didn't add one, but you probably should. Adding fetch lands and shock lands to this deck could be really strong. In fact, I even added a land that works out really well with them. Krosan Verge can fetch up forest cards and plain cards. It can ramp you, and it's a land. And it's particularly good with those shocks and fetches. But otherwise, I just diversified the lands a little bit. I did take out Darkwater Catacombs. Didn't like this type of filter. I preferred something else. There's another filter that they gave us. It's down here, Sungrass Prairie. Those are the 2 I took out. And really what I added in are the panoramas, Bant Panorama and Esper Panorama. I like the panoramas a lot because they come into play on tap, so they don't hurt your tempo if you don't want them to, and then they can get you exactly what you need later. And it's only a small cost, 1 and a tap, so it's like 2 mana to be able to fetch out exactly what you need. I think it's great. You are going to need to be a little bit worried if you do a lot of fetching, because like 6 forests, 2 and 2 and 2, and you have a Terramorphic Expanse and an Evolving Wilds. This might be a mistake. We might need to fix the mana base a little bit. But if you're aware of it, if you're aware of your mana base, you should be just fine. The inclusion that I liked the most was Calciform Pools. Now, they gave us Dreadshift Brief. Okay? These are the storage lands. You can store up mana into these lands, and you can proliferate those storage counters. And then in one big go, remove a bunch of counters and then ramp your mana forward. They're great. Dreadship Reef is what they gave us. I added the not the Esper one, the Azorius one, and the green-white one. I don't know why I'm blanking on what green-white is. Probably because I've been talking too fast too much. Anyway. Some other lands that I added are the temples. Specifically, I added the green temples. The blue-white one's stupidly expensive, and we're skewed heavy green anyways. So Temple of Malady, Temple of Mystery, and Temple of Plenty. I added all these temples. Some people diss the temples. I love the temples. This can very easily in a commander game be your dual land comes into play tapped, draw a card. Because being able to scry in a singleton format is very, very strong. You can get rid of a piece of ramp later on in the game. You can get rid of something that isn't going to help you, like search a little bit further for exactly what you need. Very strong series of cards. And then we go into the few pieces of utility lands, because I added 2. I added Oran Reef the Vastwood. Put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Ooh. We can put a lot of green creatures into the battlefield. Yes, I know, it doesn't work with Hangerback Walker or Chasm Skulker, but it works with Avenger of Zendikar. Ooh. It works with Gave. Ooh, it works with Hooded Hydra. It works with all of these green creatures. And what about Michael? Oh yeah, it works with a lot of cards, guys. And just being able to, bam, put a bunch of +1/+1 encounters on things just gives you the ability to start it off. I mean, what about on your commander? You can, if you cast it for 5 instead of 4, use the Oran Wreath the Vastwood, you can immediately proliferate your commander up to a 6/6. Some cards don't have the +1/+1 counters on them, so being able to get it started is really important. Speaking of which, Gavin E Township is one of my highest budget inclusions, pushing $6, but Gavin E Township is great. You can just go crazy, pumping your team with tons of +1/+1 counters and then proliferating them with your commander. Okay, let's talk about some of the cards that I took out. None of them are really bad, they just didn't really have that much of a fit. I used other board wipes instead of Dune Blast. This is a big, stupid dragon. Grip of Phyresis is cool, but I'm going more synergistic than that. This doesn't really belong in the deck. You can go big. Sorry, I should slow down. This is a Shy Ojutide Dragon Speaker, and this is one of those single targets go big +1/+1 counters. If you can see with Proliferate, it actually is an advantage to spread out and proliferate as many times as possible, which is why I didn't go with the super big strategy. But you should not, and I should not, discount how important it is and how critical it could be to have one big threat. So this guy, Managorger Hydra, the other card that I kept in, Forgotten Ancient, all of these things can get huge on their own and be a single big threat. And being able to diversify your threats can be really valuable as well. You can get some birds. I took that out. Mirror Weave on a 0/0 can be, not a 0/3, a 0/0 can be hilarious, but I took it out anyways. I picked a different removal, but Mortify and Putrefy could still be really good. And things like Thrumming Bird could also be really good, but I found him a little bit underwhelming, and I chose to proliferate with a Viral Drake instead. Oh my gosh, I talked about what we took out before I talked about 2 little hidden inclusions, and these are the Planeswalkers that I included. Now, we're on a budget here, and Planeswalkers can be kind of expensive, but these came straight out of the duel deck, and they're really fun. Jace, Architect of Thought, draws you cards. It's very strong. Provides a little bit of protection, but mostly draws you cards. And if you can proliferate these guys up, or maybe you can Deep Close Skate them up, double the counters on them, these Planeswalkers can be really strong and win you the game. Jace steals something from every single deck on the battlefield. It's amazing. Just take one, bribery. It's great. Okay. Vraska, the other one, can kind of take the place of a removal spell. I know it's slow, it's sorcery speed, but the minus destroy target non-land permanent is still like a removal spell. But also has the advantage of having an ultimate where you put 3 1/1 Black Assassins that make your opponent lose the game. So I do really like the cool ultimates on these guys if you can proliferate them up over and over again. Feel free to diversify your Planeswalkers. There are way better ones out there, and maybe you own a few. That'd be really cool inclusions. You can sort of customize it however you like. But these guys were pretty inexpensive, so I threw them in there. By the way, I'm pretty sure that Vraska, you can get her for like $2. You don't have to spend 4 on it. Now let's move on to this maybe board that I have here. I started off with Anok Bonkin, and this is supposed to represent all of the Outlast creatures. There's a lifelink one, there's the flying one, and the trample one already in here. There's also a Death Touch one. I mean, there's even a bird from the set where you can spread the +1/+1 counters around. But this guy just didn't quite make my deck. I think I wanted a higher impact, even though First Strike's really good and I do want to be in combat. But feel free to put him in if you want to. I took out this Planeswalker. Again, going all in on one threat is very powerful. That's by the way, flying and double strike for the -3. And the synergy of putting a +1/+1 counter on stuff is interesting, but I found that he wasn't as high impact and flexible enough for the cost, the $5. Then I have Archangel Thune, a $22 card. I put him in because Spike Feeder's good too, and together they go infinite. You gain infinite life and you get infinite +1/+1 counters. Spike Feeder says you can take a counter off to gain 2 life, and this puts +1/+1 encounters back on again. These two go crazy together, and Archangel Thune can be really strong on her own. And plus the art's really sweet. Not worth $22 though, but I threw it in here. This might be worth every penny, but don't feel like you need to buy it. Doubling Season doubles all the counters on everything. It's crazy. It's $46 too. Ugh. But trust me, you do not need it in this deck. It's really, really cool, but play the deck without it. It's 1 card in 100. Like, you don't need it. Like, all the upgrades, you can get all of the upgrades I've talked about for the price of a Doubling Season. Ichor Rats I mentioned, but giving each player a poison counter is really nice, because then you can proliferate, throw Ichor Rats down, and then they're basically on a proliferate clock. It's very cool. Lighthouse Chronologist is also very interesting. You can level up the Chronologist and then proliferate to get higher and higher and higher up, because when you get to the high enough level, you just get to keep taking extra turns over and over again, like all the time. It's great. I mentioned Azuri up here. Where we go? Where's Azuri? There we go. I mentioned Azuri up here. And I have another old commander coming back. It's Mirren. Mirren is good because it can get cards back from your graveyard. Remember this Verdant Confluence, how I said that was strong? Well, Mirren does that on a creature as well, and we can proliferate the experience counters. But Mirren doesn't synergize as well as Azuri, and Mirren's also like $7, so we don't need her. I already mentioned the Spike Feeder. So that is the deck. That's been a lot. I've been talking straight for a long time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed me breaking down all these cards, and we're going to go ahead and break down the budget. Let's break down the budget for Atraxa. Alright, so we're going to start off with a budget of $100. I feel like it's 100 cards, $100. It's a pretty good place to start. And by the way, we can definitely trim some money here or there, but this is going to be the starting point. Okay, we're going to immediately buy the precon. That's $35 from hopefully your local game store. If not, they have them at Target, Walmart, those big box stores. Okay. Then we're going to add our upgrades. Okay, our upgrades are $45 total, the top one being Gavin E Township, a little over $5 for lightly played. Contagion Engine, $4, a little over. Darksteel Reactor sitting right around $4, and Avenger of Zendikar sitting a little bit under $4. So just between these cards, for a 12 plus a 5, that's $17. It's almost half of our whole budget across 4 cards. These are not going to be as impactful as you think. My personal favorites would be Contagion Engine and Avenger of Zendikar, even though Gavin E Township is very strong. I might just cut Darksteel Reactor. If you want to win just for a card winning, maybe add an Infect card or something like that. There's definitely some trims that can happen in this area of the budget. But after this, there's a big drop-off. There's a few $3 cards, but a lot of them are in the cents, which is really great. And then lastly, we need some sleeves. I don't know why people make budgets for decks and then think you're going to just take your cards and shuffle them up. So anyways, we're going to throw some sleeves in there. I've chosen red sleeves because we want to troll our opponents and say, yeah, we're playing we're playing a red deck. No, just kidding. But anyways, nice sleeves. You should have those, which means that we add this up, it's $91, so we're $9 under budget, which is very strong. If you really want to spend those $9, I'd say a Chromatic Lantern. I was overestimating the cost of Solemn Simulacrum earlier. You can get one for $250. You should go get a Solemn Simulacrum. Like, it's so great. If you want to spend a lot of money, consider investing in some of those maybe board cards, a Doubling Season. I don't know, but definitely in the mana base. Get some shock lands. You can use those in other decks if you ever decide to break apart Atraxa. Maybe a fetch land here or there. Like, little things to the mana base will make your deck a lot more playable and make it a lot more fun. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this brand new style, brand new approach to a Commander deck. I guess this is like an upgrade tech, which, I don't know. I'll see how you guys like it. Please let me know in the comments. I'm excited to see how you guys react to just kind of me talking for 20 minutes without editing or script or anything like that. I hope you guys found it informational, and I really am excited for new players to just kind of grab this Atraxa deck or any of the other precons and just start breaking them apart. Maybe use some of my ideas, go through your trade binder, go through all your cards. I love that part of building, and hopefully I can inspire a few people. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.